A lot of people, especially Americans, are obsessed with their net worth, and they just are dying to know how they stack up against other people because we love to play the comparison game here. So if you're somebody who watched my video about that you're not left behind and you're not really doing so bad, it's just that there's so many fakers out there and there's a lot of broke people out there that make it look like they're doing great, and you're already feeling down about your situation, you probably shouldn't watch this video. However, this is something I've always been curious about, even though I don't really care what other people's net worth is. I always find it fascinating to know how far along the average person or average household is by age group, which is something I want to cover in today's video. And right off the bat, a lot of people kind of mistake what net worth is or how to calculate it. You know, a lot of people think, well, if I have $500,000 in my retirement account and I own a home worth $500,000 and I drive a car worth 100 grand, then I must be worth 1.1 million. However, they forgot a really important part of the equation, which is that net worth is all of your assets value minus the debt that you owe. So if you owe 400 grand on your house and you owe 50 grand on your car and you have $10,000 in credit card debt, that's 460 grand just in liabilities, and that brings you down to actually a net worth of $640,000. Net worth is whatever you own, all of your valuable assets, cash, retirement accounts, real estate, vehicles, anything that you can essentially sell for money. Whatever that amount is, minus the amount you owe in debt, is your true net worth, which is yet another reason why I tell people to stay out of debt, guys, because then everything you own, if you were to sell it today, you don't owe any of that to anybody. A mortgage is probably the one exception that is kind of okay to have as long as your interest rate is not so bad and you have an affordable payment, because it's not really realistic for most people to pay cash for a house. But if you're diligent with your money and saving, it's definitely possible not to have debt on anything else, including a car. Now, we only have net worth data going back to as far as 2022 from the Federal Reserve, and the median net worth of Americans in 2022 was $192,900. Remember, the median is the middle. You're in the middle of everybody. Half of the people have less net worth than you, half the people have more net worth than you. So the median is what you need to look at, because you can't really look at the average, because there's so many wealthy people that have so much that it skews the average numbers too high. Like, for example, the average net worth in 2022 is 1.06 million, whereas most people aren't worth anywhere near that much. But because of how rich a certain percentage of the population it is, it brings that average up that high. Check it out, how things change. They're building like a sales center here, and they're gonna have a new building going up. Last time I walked past here, this was an empty lot like 6 months ago, guys. Crazy how fast things turn around in Miami. It's gonna be called the Pagani Residences. First ever Pagani Residences, it says. All these places named after cars. The Bentley Towers, Pagani Residences, we got Porsche Tower here in Miami, waiting for the Ferrari Tower next. So according to this table, as we can see, they start household net worth by age at younger than 35 and up. Because they pretty much figure that if you're less than 35 years old, you probably don't have much to your name anyways. And let's just pay attention to the right side of the chart, because that's the median number. Like I said, the averages just get skewed too much by the billionaires that have everything. So when you're younger than 35, median net worth, $39,000. 35 to 44, $135,000. 45 to 54, $247,000. 55 to 64, that's when people start accumulating more wealth, obviously, $364,000. 65 to 74 is when people kind of hit their peak of net worth at $409,000. And then after that, it starts going downhill, because at 75, you start going back to the levels you were at in your 50s, because now you're in retirement and you're likely spending a lot of that money. And you know, I would hope that these numbers are actually encouraging for a lot of the people who are feeling left behind or feel like they're not doing well enough in life, because let's be honest, guys, the peak net worth here in your 60s or 70s, the median number is just barely over $400,000. And I'm not saying that's nothing to be proud of, but it's also not that much money either. You know, you're nowhere near being a millionaire, even in retirement, for half of the people. Okay, maybe even more than half, because that's just the median. But it should also help you realize that, hey, You know, as a younger person, maybe I don't have to be a millionaire, because clearly everybody retiring today isn't a millionaire and they're doing okay. At least it might seem so on the surface, but you don't know how much people are struggling, having a hard time paying their bills either. But the point of this exercise is to look at this data and say, wow, you know, I don't have to be a millionaire to live a fulfilling life, to be able to have a decent retirement. You know, these numbers are going to change in the future due to inflation, but even so, let's say, you know, on the highest end here in your 60s and 70s, it goes up 200 grand, which means you could still retire with a $600,000 net worth and be more than okay for a lot of people. And to me, I think that should be encouraging. And the number one reason that should be encouraging to young people is because that is completely obtainable, especially if you start saving and investing when you are young. If you start doing this in your early 20s, it's like a guarantee you're gonna be a millionaire when you do retire, which means you're gonna be far beyond the average person. So I think looking at this data shouldn't make you feel bad, but rather make you feel optimistic that, yeah, I can beat those numbers, you know, and it won't be that hard to beat it. If I can just put away, you know, 10, 15, 20% of my income every month and save and invest that for 30 or 40 years, you're gonna be set. The problem is a lot of people don't have the discipline to do that, you know, or emergencies come up that they didn't plan for, or they just like to spend all of their money and then some. That seems to be the American way. Like, forget about saving any of my income. We're going to spend all of the income and borrow the rest to fulfill my appetite for spending. But here's what people need to understand about building your wealth and building net worth, okay? It's slow and steady wins the race, guys. Anybody who remembers that bedtime story as a kid, I always remember that one, the tortoise and the hare. You know, where the tortoise and the hare, they go for a race, and for a while it seems like the hare is far ahead of the tortoise, but after stopping to take many breaks and basically screwing around and getting tired and wearing themselves out, the tortoise ends up winning the race. Why? Because slow and steady wins the race. It's the lesson of that story. And this is so true, especially in real life when it comes to getting ahead of the average person and investing. A lot of people don't want to look at the long game. They don't want to think about, oh, I need to save today so I have money in 40 years from now. They want to have it all today. And I'm not an investment advisor, guys. I'm not sitting here telling you how to invest your money. That is completely up to you. I think there's a lot of different great ways people can do it. You know, my favorite way in the past was real estate, you know, but now real estate is a tricky game to get into, not only because of the cost, but also because if you're trying to get into the landlord game, it's very difficult to turn a profit at today's prices and interest rates. And yeah, you could say, well, if I'm just getting by and basically making no money, but my tenants are paying off my properties, then at the end of those 30 years, I'm gonna have those properties paid off. But that's also taking a gamble. You're taking the gamble that those properties are gonna be worth significantly more in 30 years. You're taking a gamble that you're not gonna have any major repairs or expenses come up along the way, which guaranteed you will, especially after 30 years of owning a property. So you're just kind of gambling. I'm not saying real estate isn't great. It is a great way to build wealth, but you got to be very smart and strategic about it. A lot of people love the stock market because it's very passive. You just throw money in there and watch it grow over the years. And when the crash comes, you have to just look the other way, because if you don't, people panic, they take it out, and then they end up losing out on the gains that come after the crash, which looks like could be happening sooner than later. And I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff, but I know I'm certainly waiting for that. One thing I really love personally is gold and silver, because it's much more obtainable than real estate, and it's a hard, tangible, physical asset, unlike the stock market. Every time they print more money, gold and silver is worth more money, guys. You pretty much can't lose, because you know the government's going to continue printing more money, and that gold and silver is going to hedge against inflation indefinitely into the future. People can also take advantage of their 401k accounts by not only making the maximum contribution, but making sure you're getting the maximum contribution from your employer as well. That's basically getting free money to retire on down the road. But the number one mistake a lot of people make along the way on this journey, at some point they fall off the wagon, and what do? They get themselves into debt, guys. And sometimes it's not even just debt. Sometimes the spending habits get out of control. You know, people go to save for retirement and try to increase their net worth into their later years thinking that, well, I can play catch up now because I earn a lot more now and my kids are growing up out of the house or whatever. But some people develop spending habits so that even if you do have more money saved for retirement, you might not be able to live off of that savings because you've grown accustomed to the finer things in life. So you also gotta be realistic with yourself and how much money you think you're gonna need. And you know, I'll give you my own personal philosophy on this too, because I don't have a very scientific approach to retirement myself. Basically, my approach is, because I'm in my late 30s, guys, I'll be 40 in a few more years. My approach to it is like, I am just going to work as hard as I can now while I'm younger and earn and save as much as I possibly can and invest as much as I possibly can for all these years. And whatever I end up with at the time when I feel like taking it easy and slowing down is gonna have to work, okay? I will adapt to that because I had nothing for a very long time and I can adapt. If it means that it's less trips and, you know, less going out and less whatever, I'm okay with that. You know, because I understand also that when you get older and you're living on a finite amount of money and you don't have income coming in anymore, you need to be able to make that work and adjust and adapt. And I'm very good at that. I can adapt. But also, you can do things to try to make sure that you do still earn money in retirement, even if it's not as much as before. And the number one way most people do that is they own a business, okay? In 2022, nearly half of the families in the top of the net worth category were business owners. And the reason why is because when you own a business, you can make money pretty much 24/7, depending on the business. But if it's not 24/7, it's daily, even though you don't have to be there for the maximum amount of work. At least most businesses operate like this unless you're just a one-man show and you don't have any employees and you need to actually be there to earn every single dollar that you make. But even then, the sky is the limit. Even if you're the sole income earner for your business and you don't have any employees to leverage and you don't make money around the clock, you still can increase your sales. You still can increase your clientele. And it gives you that freedom and flexibility that people that have jobs just don't have. And listen, I understand that not everybody's cut out for being a business owner. Some people really need the structure of, I go to work Monday through Friday and I get paid and I keep doing that and rinsing, repeating for all these years, and that keeps my life on track. I don't want to think about work when I'm not at work because business owners constantly have to think about work even when they're not working, and that sucks too. Totally get that. But just know that if you're somebody that wants to retire with a high net worth, then you may have a better shot at doing that with your own business. Unless you earn a lot of money at your job and you have a very good 401k match and you know you're gonna be just fine, stick with it. But if you're somebody on the lower end of the income spectrum and you know that you could do better on your own, you believe in yourself, I say 100% go for it. And speaking of working a regular job, some companies are starting to experiment with helping their employees with certain surprise expenses that come up in life. Chipotle is the prime example of this. In fact, this year, they expanded its financial wellness offerings to include student debt repayment, pay on demand, and a special debit card that helps users build a credit profile. According to Chipotle's director of global benefits, she said that more than 73% of its 125,000 global employees are Gen Z who are racking up credit card debt quickly and are not confident in their money management skills, which is exactly why people in that age group need to be watching videos like this and channels like mine to help people further understand the world and further understand how money works and how not to make all these big mistakes that people do end up making that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout their life. Right now, only about 32% of workers across the country rate their financial wellness as excellent or very good. And that's down from 44% back in 2022. Even during the pandemic, 30% of workers rated their financial wellness as excellent or good. So ever since the pandemic, people's feeling of how good they're doing in life with their finances has actually been on the decline. So employers that recognize this as an opportunity are using this to kind of recruit more employees with these new type of benefits. And one of the main requests for a lot of employees is for employers to pay a greater share of the benefits costs. In fact, 51% of workers said that this is something that they prefer. You have other companies that are allowing people to access their salary or pay early. They're saying, listen, the current economic situation is that we have high inflation and folks are stretching their dollars as much as they can and sometimes getting themselves in a situation where they need access to dollars at a faster speed than their regular paycheck. But those services usually come with a fee, guys, so you are going to end up taking less money home in the end if you can't make it. And honestly, if you find yourself in this position regularly, you need to sit there and really evaluate your finances. Say you've already cut all the fat out of your budget and you just can't cut any more out and you're still having a hard time making it, it might be time to start looking for a new job or increasing your skills to get a better paying job, or like I said earlier, start a business. This way you have more control over how much money you're actually earning. And particularly offering employees access to the money early or pay-on-demand services can be very valuable, employers are saying, because a lot of employees end up turning to high-interest rate lenders like loan sharks or those payday loan places. What ends up happening to a lot of them is they might not be able to get to work because they do run out of money, or because they're too distracted, because the responsibility and the pressure to make that loan payment is too high. So ultimately they think it's better to be able to be the middleman and front their employees instead of forcing them to go to a payday loan place, which I think is overall a good thing. But like I said, just recognize if you're taking advantage of this service a lot, then you might need to start second guessing your finances or your job or your income situation. Some companies are even looking at offering employees budgeting sessions with financial experts and planners to help them better navigate their finances, which gives them the ability to ask questions and learn about things in order to increase their chances of financial success. This is also new here too. Started putting in a little dock at this park. Nothing like that was here 6 months ago. So it's good to see that there's some companies out there that are starting to try to meet their employees in the middle and recognize the financial hardships that people are facing. But ultimately, the best thing I think that most companies can do for their employees is to just give them that raise that they desperately need. Because a lot of people are not getting the raises that they should be getting in this economy, guys. You even have companies acknowledging that inflation is tough for everybody, and that's why people turn to these payday loans, and rather than turn to them, you can turn to us. But why not just pay people more money so they don't even need that bridge loan to begin with? Like they make it seem like they're giving people a nice service, but really it does end up costing them extra money. So they're not taking home the full amount of their paycheck, and the company probably makes a little bit of extra money off of that as well. So it does have a sinister motive as well, if you ask me. It's not all sunshine and roses. It's not all just, oh, we're doing the right thing to help everybody. Which is why I just found over the years, and I recognized this even when I was in high school, guys, and I was still a teenager just working retail jobs, I realized back then that I wanted to own my own business because I just didn't want to have everybody tell me what to do. That was a big thing for me. I don't do well with that. And also, I wanted to be able to have flexibility over my income. And I realized when we talked about all these different jobs and what people made and how much their salaries were in school, I realized that there's a limit on that. There's a cap. Even for people that decide to go to college and spend, 8 years becoming a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, there's still a cap with that stuff unless you start your own practice, right? And so essentially, even those people who went to college, they still become business owners and work for themselves in order to achieve their maximum potential. Sure, you don't have to. You can remain a doctor or a lawyer working for a hospital, for example, and you're gonna have your salary and you're gonna have your job, and that's it. But your earnings potential is gonna be severely lower than if you decided to take matters into your own hands. So if you're somebody that's looking to increase their net worth and you want to get into that millionaire crowd before you're dead, I think that's the best way to get there. Or just make sure you're frugal and have a good paying job and you can save a good chunk of your money. Don't fall into this consumerism trap where people just spend everything they make and then 20% more, and they're just racking up credit card debt like there's no tomorrow. It's just not a good place to be in. Even if you file for bankruptcy and you eventually get out of that debt, you're still going to be hurting financially for years to come because of those poor decisions of the past. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.